We're all gung-ho to write our memoir and our stories, except sometimes we hit a really rough spot. We hit that area of our life where we have to relive painful memories. There's something in our story we know we need to tell. It's a key element of our story, but it hurts. Is there a way around it? Do we have to go through it? Or is there an alternative? Hello, I'm Brenda and I'm here to help you to write your story. I love to help people to write their memoirs. I've known the benefit of writing mine, and that's why I've started this channel, to help others like you to write your story. And one thing I know is I know how difficult it is to visit some of those really tender moments in our story and feel the pain of them. The premise of my whole book is, how do we survive difficult things? How do we get to the other side? How do we not just survive them but thrive and really live our lives well again? And my short answer to you is maybe not one you want to hear, but my experience is the best way to do that is to actually go through them. Not to run away from them, not to hide from them, not to find a coping mechanism that will ignore them, but actually to move towards them and to go through them. And writing your memoir in particular, is a perfect way to do that. It's an ideal way to do that. The question that comes to mind that I think we all have to answer in grappling with our emotions, in grappling with the difficult events in our lives, is, what is the alternative? What is it that you've done in your life thus far that has helped you to cope? How have you coped with those memories that you've perhaps pushed aside, suppressed, ignored, pretended didn't happen, found a way to cope with them? And that is all fine, because we have to find ways in our lives sometimes to deal with things. But sometimes we deal with them in a way, in a pattern of behavior that's actually not helpful. And in writing our memoir, we come to a point where we can actually now start to unpack that. We very often think coping mechanisms are things like having that extra glass of wine that then becomes 2 or 3 glasses of wine every night that we know we shouldn't be having. That's really a trademark coping mechanism. But what about coping mechanisms like mispositivity? Let me give you an example. Someone who read my book reached out to me and shared with me how my book had impacted her. She shared with me some of the difficult experiences she had had in her life. And then she said, you know, one of the ways I've spent my life coping with that is always trying to see the positive outlook, to be the one in the room that gives the upbeat perspective on everything. But really, she says, all I'm doing is masking the hurt and the pain that I've been carrying around in me for years and years. So what is your coping mechanism? Is it overeating, overdrinking, over-exercising? How is this difficulty in your life already playing out? What real estate is it already taking up in your life? Perhaps it's that outburst of anger. Perhaps it's that jealousy that stirs up in you for some reason. Perhaps it's that overachieving, that striving to be perfect, the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect employee. These, although they can at first appear to be excellent ways of being in this world, are they not just coping mechanisms? Are they not just ways of you stuffing down your pain and your hurt? That are actually perhaps less apparent than the overdrinking, the overeating, other dysfunctional behavior, but they really are coping mechanisms. Is it having the perfect family that showcases that we know how to keep it all together, we know who we are? So those are all examples to ask you, what is your coping mechanism? How are you dealing with the pain in your life now anyway? And how do you want to live going forward? What is it that writing your memoir, writing these difficult stories and going forward will actually give you? Another thing I want you to think about before we go on any further is, you may think, you know what, I'm actually doing okay. I don't think that this is really impacting me in any way. And right now, in this moment, it may be. But here's a story for you from my life, which helped me to understand that I had things in my life I needed to unpack. I am the overachiever. I am the goody two-shoes. I am the one who works really hard and puts a lot of effort into what I do and pursues excellence. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but it's all steeped in my ability to cope in this life and actually deal with my pain and my difficulty. And one day at my desk, probably 15 years ago, I was at my desk working, doing my work, feeling great, feeling like everything was just hunky-dory in my life, when all of a sudden my head shot up. I did this. Oh, there go my glasses. I did this. And what happened? I felt like there was water rising right up here, and I had to keep my head above it. And as my head flicked back so quickly, I thought to myself, I'm drowning. And I had to keep my head up, and I said, Brenda, you're drowning in unshed tears. And that happened on a day when I was feeling perfectly fine. I was feeling like everything was great in my life. But there were things stirring in me that I knew I had to start to deal with. And maybe that's where you're at. And so can I encourage you to write your story? Write those difficult memories. Push through them. Go through them, because that's really the only way to heal. If you have done some counseling, you will know that sometimes writing is a therapy they use in order to help you to heal, in order to help you to deal with emotions, to visit stories. And that is actually one of the healing benefits of writing. And so that's one of the benefits that comes out of writing your memoir. And so when you sit down and you press through those stories, you will actually get to the other side. But they will be painful. They will hurt. They will not be easy. The question again then is, what is the alternative? Do you want to stay where you are, or do you want to move forward and heal? And this for me has been my experience on how to heal, is to actually write these difficult stories, not to go around them, not to drown them out, not to ignore them, but to actually revisit them. And this is why when we revisit those difficult stories, when we press into them, when we go into that pain, when we shed the tears as we write our stories, we actually bring them into the light. And when we bring them into the light, we can now start to deal with them. And perhaps even if there are stories from long ago when you were much, much younger, there's a new perspective that can come from writing those stories and just telling them first to yourself, now that you're that much older than when you experienced them so much younger. That doesn't mean that those experiences don't count. There's just a different perspective that can come to them as you revisit these stories. Now, some provisos too, that as you go through these difficult times, as you work through them, take care of yourself. When you know you're going to be writing a difficult piece that's going to bring up emotion for you, take care of yourself. Make sure that you have the support you need. At the end of that session, do you have a special little treat for you that's actually life-giving, but not self-destructive or self-defeating? Do you have a friend you could go with and do a walk and a talk? Do you need to do some more counseling? There's nothing wrong with that. You're not a loser. You're someone who knows how to take care of himself or herself. In my book, When God Says No, I have a whole section in Final Words where I deal specifically with this topic and how I dealt with it in my life. Do subscribe and click on the notification bell if you haven't already, so that we can continue to walk this journey together, that you may find other people who are in the same boat as you are, and we can encourage each other. So I will see you in the next video. I am delighted to have you along on the journey, and I will see you next time.